The stars look different today. Admiral Lee Hanna stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the endless darkness of space through the main view screen. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't notice. Something felt wrong. "Admiral," called Commander Park Ji-won from his position at the tactical station. His voice carried a note she had learned to recognize after 3 years serving together: concern. "We're picking up some strange readings on long-range sensors." Hannah turned from the view screen and walked to Ji-won's station. The Defiance was humanity's newest and largest warship, built to protect the outer colonies from pirates and smugglers. Today was supposed to be a routine patrol of the Kepler system, checking on mining operations and trade routes. "Nothing exciting ever happened out here. What kind of readings?" Hannah asked, looking over Ji-won's shoulder at the display. Numbers and symbols scrolled across the screen in patterns she didn't recognize. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database," Ji-won replied, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Whatever's producing them is big, really big. And it's coming this way." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Hannah's crew of 200 were the best humanity had to offer, trained for any situation they might face in the depths of space. But they had never trained for this? "Distance?" Hannah asked. "Approximately 12 light minutes and closing," reported Lieutenant Kimsel from the navigation station. "At current speed, they'll reach us in about 6 hours." "They?" Hannah caught the word immediately. Kimsel's face went pale as she checked her readings again. "Admiral, I'm counting at least 50 contacts. Possibly more. The sensors can't get a clear reading because of the energy interference. 50 ships. Humanity's entire fleet numbered less than 30 vessels, and most of those were small patrol craft or cargo haulers. The Defiance was their pride and joy, but even she would be helpless against 50 enemy ships. "Could they be from Earth?" asked Dr. Song Murray, the ship's science officer. "Some kind of new fleet we weren't told about?" Hannah shook her head. "Command would have informed us of any Earth fleet movements in this sector. Besides, our ships don't produce energy signatures like these." The bridge crew worked in tense silence for the next hour, trying to gather more information about the approaching fleet. Every scan revealed the same troubling truth. These ships were unlike anything humanity had ever built. They were larger, more advanced, and clearly not of human origin. "Admiral," Ji-won called out suddenly. "They're dropping out of hyperspace." The view screen flickered and adjusted its display as massive shapes appeared in the darkness ahead. Hannah felt her breath catch in her throat. The ships were enormous, each one easily 10 times the size of the Defiance. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and strange symbols glowed along their surfaces like ancient writing carved in fire. "My God," whispered Chief Engineer Nam Yo-jin from her station near the back of the bridge. "Those aren't human ships." The realization hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. First contact. After centuries of searching the stars and finding nothing but empty planets and dead civilizations, humanity had finally encountered another living species, and they had come in warships. "All stop," Hannah ordered. "Red alert. All hands to battle." Stations. Alarms began wailing throughout the ship as the crew prepared for possible combat. But Hannah knew it would be hopeless. The alien fleet could destroy the Defiance without breaking formation. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Lee Damon. His voice shook slightly. "It's on all frequencies." "They want us to?" "Receive it." "Put it through," Hannah said, straightening her uniform. History was about to be made, and she wanted to face it with dignity. The view screen changed to show the interior of an alien bridge. The being that appeared was tall and imposing, with gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes like burning coals. When it spoke, its voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am General Thakemore of the Vorthan Empire," the alien said. Its mouth didn't move quite right for the words it spoke, but somehow the meaning was clear. "Your primitive species has been observed and judged. You will surrender your worlds and your people to the Empire." Hannah stepped forward, making sure. She was visible on their transmission. I am Admiral Lee Hanna of the United Earthship Defiance. We are peaceful explorers, not a threat to your empire. General Fakmer's expression didn't change. All species say the same words when they first see our fleet. It matters not. Your resistance will be brief and pointless. We have conquered 1,000 worlds and enslaved 100 species. You are nothing special. The alien general gestured with one of his 4 arms, and the viewscreen split to show images from space around them. The Defiance's sensors confirmed what the images revealed. There were not 50 ships in the alien fleet. There were over 200, and more were arriving every minute. To demonstrate our power, General Fakmer continued, observe. One of the alien ships fired a single beam of energy at a nearby asteroid field. The rocks, some as large as cities, simply vanished. Not destroyed or broken apart, but completely erased as if they had never existed. The bridge of the Defiance was dead silent. Every person there understood what they had just witnessed. The aliens could erase entire planets with the same casual ease. Your species has 72 of your hours to consider surrender, General Fakmer announced. Gather your leaders, bring your fleets. When the time expires, you will kneel before the Empire and accept your place as slaves. If you resist, we will exterminate every human in existence and claim your worlds for more worthy species. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Hannah looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. Fear, shock, and the crushing weight of responsibility. Humanity's first contact with alien life might also be their last. Orders, Admiral? Jiwon asked quietly. Hannah moved to the captain's chair and sat down slowly. Her mind raced through options, plans, and possibilities. The smart choice would be to contact Earth immediately and recommend surrender. These aliens had the power to destroy humanity without effort, but as she looked at her crew, Hannah remembered why she had joined the fleet in the first place. Her grandmother had told her stories of the old wars on Earth when ordinary people stood up to tyrants who thought they could never be defeated. Sometimes David did beat Goliath. Open a channel, Hannah ordered. All frequencies. I want every human ship and colony to hear this. Lee Damon's hands shook as he worked the controls. Channel open, Admiral. Hannah stood up and faced the viewscreen, knowing that her words would reach every corner of human space. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady, carrying the authority of someone who had made an impossible decision and would stand by it. General Fakmer, she said, looking directly into the alien's burning eyes, you want us to kneel? Bow first. The transmission ended, and the bridge erupted in activity as the crew began preparing for war. They had 72 hours to figure out how to fight gods. But they were human, and humans had never been good at knowing when they were beaten. The stars looked different today. They looked like a challenge. The conference room aboard the UES Defiance had never seen so many worried faces. Admiral Lee Hanna sat at the head of the long table, surrounded by her senior officers and the best minds humanity could offer through long-range communication. The holographic displays showed representatives from Earth Command, colony governors, and fleet commanders scattered across human space. 68 hours remained until General Fakmer's deadline. The math is simple, said Dr. Kim Do-yeon, the fleet's chief strategist, as he gestured to the tactical display floating above the table. They have over 200 ships, each one more powerful than anything we've ever built. We have 29 combat vessels total, most of them patrol boats and escorts. Captain Yoon Minho leaned forward from his position at Earth Command. Even through the hologram, his exhaustion was clear. The civilian evacuation is proceeding as fast as possible, but we're talking about moving billions of people. We need more time. Time we don't have, replied Lieutenant Colonel Han Soman from the Mars Defense Station. My ground forces are digging in, but if they can erase asteroids with a single shot, our planetary defenses won't last 5 minutes. Hannah listened to the reports with growing frustration. Every tactical analysis reached the same conclusion. Humanity couldn't win. A straight fight. The Vorthans had superior numbers, better technology, and centuries of experience conquering other species. What about negotiation? Asked Governor Park Jin-woo from the Centauri colonies. Maybe we can find some kind of middle ground. Did you see that alien general's face? Dr. Song-Mare shook her head. He wasn't making an offer. He was giving an ultimatum. Serve or die. Engineer Chief Nam Hyo-jin had been quiet during most of the discussion, but now she spoke up. Admiral, I've been analyzing the sensor data from their demonstration, the way they destroyed that asteroid field. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, but they're also incredibly focused. Meaning? Hannah asked. Meaning they're designed to fight big targets, ships, space stations, planets. I'm not sure how well they'd work against something small and fast. Commander Park Ji-won looked up from his tactical calculations. Small and fast describes most of our fleet, but it doesn't matter how maneuverable we are if we can't hurt them. Hannah stood up and walked to the view screen showing the alien fleet. The massive ships hung in space like dark monuments to power and conquest. Something about their formation bothered her, but she couldn't put her finger on what. They're so confident, she said quietly. Look at how they're positioned. No defensive screens, no patrol ships, no concern at all about a surprise attack. Because they don't need to worry, Captain Yoon pointed out. What could we possibly do to threaten them? Maybe that's the problem, Hannah said, turning back to face the group. They're not thinking like we would. They're thinking like a superior force dealing with primitives. Dr. Kim Do-yeon raised an eyebrow. You have an idea? The beginning of one, Hannah admitted. Nam, how long would it take to retrofit our ships with kinetic weapons? Not energy beams or missiles, just good old-fashioned mass drivers? Mass drivers? Nam looked confused. Admiral, kinetic weapons are obsolete. Any ship with decent shields can deflect them. But what if the shields were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles? Hannah asked. What if we're dealing with an empire that's fought the same kinds of battles for so long that they've forgotten about simpler weapons? The room fell silent as everyone considered the possibility. Finally, Commander Park spoke up. Even if kinetic weapons could penetrate their defenses, we'd have to get close enough to use them. That's suicide. Not if they don't see us coming, Hannah said. She moved to the tactical display and began manipulating the holographic controls. Nam, you said their weapons are designed for big targets. What if we gave them a big target to focus on while our real attack came from somewhere else? A diversion, Dr. Kim said, understanding dawning in his voice. But what kind of diversion would be big enough to draw their attention away from a kinetic attack? Hannah smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. The biggest diversion possible. The entire human fleet. The next 18 hours were the most frantic in human history. While Captain Yoon coordinated the civilian evacuation and Lieutenant Colonel Han prepared ground defenses, every available ship in human space began converging on the alien fleet's position. Engineer Chief Nam worked miracles, stripping weapons from cargo haulers and refitting them with improvised mass drivers. The plan was insane. The human fleet would approach the Vorthons in what appeared to be a desperate frontal assault, drawing their attention and fire. Meanwhile, a small group of modified ships would approach from the opposite direction, using the debris field of an ancient battle as cover. This is crazy, muttered Dr. Song as she monitored the preparations from the Defiance's science station. We're going to get everyone killed. We're already going to get everyone killed if we do nothing, Hannah replied. At least this way, we go down fighting. The debris field had been the site of a battle between two unknown alien races thousands of years ago. Broken ships and twisted metal drifted in the darkness, a graveyard that had become a navigation hazard. Most ships avoided it entirely. Perfect place for an ambush, Nam had said when Hannah explained the plan. The metal fragments will mask our heat signatures and all that debris will confuse their sensors. As the deadline approached, Hannah found herself on the bridge of the Defiance, leading humanity's first and possibly last space battle. Around her, 27 other human ships prepared for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. All ships report ready, announced Communications Officer Lee Damon. His voice was steady now. The fear replaced by determination. Hannah opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral Hannah. In a few minutes we're going to show these aliens What humans do when someone tries to make us kneel. We might not win, but we're going to make them remember this day for the rest of their lives. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for battle. Take us in. The human fleet began its approach, and immediately the Vorthan ships responded. Their massive weapons began charging, energy building along their hulls like captured lightning. General Thakmar's voice came over the communication channels. So, the primitives choose death over servitude. Very well. Your destruction will serve as an example to other species who might consider resistance. The first Vorthan salvo lit up. Space like an artificial sun? 3 human ships simply vanished, erased as completely as the asteroids had been. But the rest kept coming, firing their improvised weapons and drawing more alien fire, while the main battle raged. 5 small ships crept through the debris field toward the Vorthan fleet's rear. Nam had loaded each one with every kinetic weapon they could carry, along with the most desperate part of Hannah's plan. Remember, she had told the volunteer crews, you're not trying to destroy their ships. You're trying to hurt them enough that they take us seriously. The ambush ships reached firing position just as the Vorthan fleet was fully engaged with the main human force. Mass drivers launched their payloads. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. Too small and too fast for the alien shields to stop. The kinetic rounds struck the Vorthan ships like hail against windows. Individual impacts did little damage, but hundreds of them hitting simultaneously caused systems to fail and hulls to crack. For the first time in the battle, alien ships began to list and drift. General Thakmar's roar of rage echoed across every communication channel. Impossible. How dare these insects damage our vessels? But Hannah was already implementing the second part of her plan. As the Vorthan fleet turned to deal with the ambush, the main human force didn't retreat. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the largest alien ships. All ships, Hannah broadcast, ramming speed. The human vessels, damaged and outgunned, made their final charge. Some were destroyed before they could reach their targets, but others struck home. Ships designed to transport cargo and passengers became kinetic weapons themselves, smashing into Vorthan hulls with the force of controlled asteroids when the smoke cleared. 12 human ships had been lost, but 8 Vorthan vessels were either destroyed or crippled. It wasn't victory, but it was something no other species had managed in centuries of Vorthan expansion. General Thakmar's image appeared on the human communication channels, his burning eyes filled with fury and something else, respect. You fight well for primitives, he admitted. But this changes nothing. We will simply bring more ships and crush you completely. Admiral Hannah, standing on the damaged bridge of the Defiance, smiled. Then you'd better bring a lot more ships, because we're just getting started. 3 days had passed since the first battle, and space around the debris field looked like a graveyard of civilizations. Broken human ships drifted alongside damaged Vorthan vessels, their hulls cracked open and bleeding atmosphere into the void. But Admiral Hannah was not done fighting. Status report, she called from the captain's chair of the UES Defiance. The ship had taken heavy damage in the battle, with blast marks scarring her hull and half her weapon systems offline. But she was still flying, and that was more than many ships could claim. 17 human vessels still operational, reported Commander Park Ji-won, his left arm in a sling from when a console had exploded during the fighting. The Vorthans have pulled back to regroup, but they've lost 11 ships completely, and another 15 are heavily damaged. Engineer Chief Nam Hyo-jin looked up from her repair work, oil stains covering her uniform. Admiral, I've been analyzing the wreckage from both sides. The Vorthan ships are more advanced than ours, but they're not invincible. Their hulls are strong but brittle. Hit them hard enough in the right spot and they crack like eggs. That's useful information, Hannah said, but we can't get close enough to hit them again. They'll be ready for our tricks now. Dr. Song My-rae had been working at her science station for hours without rest, studying every piece of data they had collected about their enemies. Admiral, there's something strange about the Vorthan fleet composition. Most of their ships are massive battleships and carriers, but they have very few small vessels. No fighters, no scouts, no patrol boats. So? Asked Lieutenant Kimsel. From navigation? So they fight like a sledgehammer, Dr. Song explained. All overwhelming force applied directly. They're not used to dealing with small, fast opponents who use guerrilla tactics. Communications Officer Lee Damon suddenly straightened. At his station. Admiral, I'm receiving a transmission from Captain Ojawan. He's requesting permission to attempt a boarding action on one of the damaged Vorthan ships. Hannah frowned. Captain O commanded the U's Resilient, a fast attack vessel that had somehow survived the battle with only minor damage. Put him through. The viewscreen showed O's determined face, with his bridge crew working frantically behind him. Admiral, we've identified a Vorthan ship that's lost power and is drifting. Her weapons are down, life support is failing, but her hull is mostly intact. If we can get aboard, we might learn something useful about their technology. It's too dangerous, Hannah replied immediately. We don't know anything about Vorthan ship layouts, their atmosphere, or what kind of defenses they might have. With respect, Admiral, everything we're doing is too dangerous, O said with a slight smile. But we're doing it anyway. My team has been studying the alien transmissions, and we think we've figured out how to bypass their airlocks. Nam looked up from her work. If Captain O can get inside one of their ships, I could analyze their technology remotely through his suit cameras. We need to understand how their weapons and shields work if we're going to have any chance of stopping them. Hannah considered the request. The smart choice would be to refuse. They had already lost too many good people, and a boarding. Action against an unknown alien vessel was incredibly risky. But the smart choice hadn't gotten them this far. Permission granted, she said finally. But the moment things go wrong, you get out of there? Understood? Understood, Admiral. Resilient out. 2 hours later, Hannah watched through long range sensors as Captain O's ship approached the drifting Vorthan vessel. The alien ship was huge, easily 20 times the size of the Resilient, and even powered down it looked menacing. They're attempting to dock, reported Jiwan. O's team has found what they think is an airlock. The next few minutes passed in tense silence as O and his boarding party worked to gain entry to the alien ship. Finally, his voice came through. The communication system, distorted by interference but clearly excited. Admiral, we're inside. The atmosphere is breathable for humans, though it smells like sulfur. The corridors are huge, built for beings much larger than us. But the technology ... His voice trailed off in wonder. What about the technology? Nam asked eagerly. It's incredible and primitive at the same time, O replied. Their computers are more advanced than anything we have, but their basic engineering is surprisingly simple, and Admiral, there's something else. We found survivors. Hannah felt her blood run cold. Survivors? Vorthan survivors? No, Admiral, human survivors. And not just humans. There are members of at least 3 different alien species locked in what appears to be holding cells. These ships aren't just warships, they're slave transports. The implications hit everyone on the bridge at once. The Vorthans weren't just conquerors. They were slavers, gathering up members of defeated species and transporting them to serve the Empire. How many worlds had they emptied? How many civilizations had they destroyed? Can you free them? Hannah asked. Already working on it, O replied. The locks are electronic, and their systems aren't that different from ours once you understand the basic principles. Give me a few more minutes. While O worked to free the prisoners, Dr. Shin Eunbi, the fleet's xenobiology specialist, joined the conversation from her research vessel. Admiral, if Captain O is right about the Vorthan ship design, this could be the break we need. Simple engineering means simple weaknesses. Explain, Hannah ordered. Think about it, Dr. Shin continued. They've been conquering primitive species for centuries. They've never needed to develop complex defensive systems because no one has ever posed a real threat. Their ships are built to intimidate and overwhelm, not to survive prolonged combat against opponents who fight back effectively. Nam was nodding as she listened. That would explain why our kinetic weapons work so well. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons from other advanced civilizations, but they never considered that someone might use simple mass drivers. "Admiral!" O's voice crackled through the speakers with urgency. "We freed the prisoners. And I've got bad news. One of the humans is a scientist named Professor Bei Jiang from the Kepler Research Station. She says the Vorthans didn't just attack randomly. They've been watching us for months, studying our technology and our tactics." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. "How long have they been watching?" "Long enough to know about our trade routes, our defensive positions, and our fleet movements," O replied. "But here's the thing, Admiral. They were expecting us to surrender or fight a conventional battle. Our guerrilla tactics caught them completely off guard." "That won't last," warned Commander Park. "They'll adapt quickly now that they know what we're capable of." "Maybe," Hannah said slowly, "but adaptation takes time, and while they're adapting, we'll be evolving." The rescue of the prisoners provided humanity with invaluable intelligence about Vorthan technology and tactics. Professor Bei, though weakened by her captivity, was able to provide detailed information about Vorthan ship systems and weaknesses. The alien prisoners, members of species that had fought and lost against the Empire, shared their own hard-won knowledge about Vorthan battle strategies, but the intelligence came with a terrible cost. General Fakmer, enraged by the boarding action and the loss of his prisoners, ordered a retaliatory strike against the nearest human colony, the world of New Shanghai, home to 3 million civilians, was bombarded from orbit. Hannah watched the reports come in with growing horror. The Vorthans had glassed entire cities, turning bustling population centers into radioactive craters. Millions were dead, and millions more were refugees fleeing to other worlds. "They're not just trying to conquer us," she said quietly as the casualty report scrolled across her screen. "They're trying to break our will to fight. Is it working?" asked Dr. Song, her voice barely above a whisper. Hana stood up and walked to the viewscreen, looking out at the debris field where human and alien ships drifted together in death. In the distance, the Vorthan fleet was regrouping, bringing in reinforcements and preparing for another assault. "No," she said firmly. "If anything, they've just given us more reason to fight. Every human in the galaxy now knows exactly what surrender means. We either win this war or we lose everything." Communications Officer Lee had been monitoring channels from across human space. "Admiral, I'm receiving messages from every colony and outpost in our territory. They're not asking for evacuation orders anymore." "What are they asking for?" Hannah wanted to know. Lee looked up with something that might have been hope in his eyes. "They're asking how they can help fight." The war had begun in earnest. Humanity had drawn first blood and paid a terrible price for it. But they had also proven something that no species had shown the Vorthan Empire in centuries. They could be hurt, they could be beaten, and they could be made to pay for their arrogance. The question now was whether humanity could survive long enough to prove it again. The caves beneath New Shanghai still glowed with radioactive heat 6 days after the Vorthan bombardment. Colonel Choi Kang-min crouched in the tunnel entrance, watching Vorthan patrol ships sweep across the ruined cityscape above. The aliens had landed ground forces to search for survivors, but they had not found the underground resistance base that Kang-min and his team had carved out of the planetary bedrock. "Signal from Resistance Cell 7, whispered Sergeant Lee Yura, her voice barely audible over the sound of her communication equipment. The young woman had volunteered to maintain contact between scattered human forces across occupied worlds. A dangerous job that required constant movement and perfect timing. "What's their status?" Kangman asked, not taking his eyes off the alien patrols above. "They successfully sabotaged the Vorthan supply depot outside the old spaceport," Yura reported. 3 alien transports destroyed, minimal casualties on our side. "But the Vorthans are increasing security around all their installations," Kangman nodded grimly. It was the same story across every occupied world. The humans who had survived. The initial bombardments had gone underground, literally and figuratively. They could not match Vorthan firepower in open battle, but they were learning that there were other ways to fight. The communicator crackled again, and Admiral Hannah's voice came through the static. All resistance cells, this is Admiral Hanna broadcasting from the Hidden Fleet. We have new intelligence about Vorthan operations. Kangman gestured for his team to gather around as Hanna continued her transmission. Thanks to information gathered from rescued prisoners, we now know that the Vorthans control their conquered territories through fear and overwhelming force. They have never faced sustained guerrilla resistance because most species either surrender completely or are wiped out entirely. That's encouraging, muttered Private Park Hyunwoo, one of Kangman's demolition specialists. We're doing something new. The key point, Hanna continued, is that their ground forces are designed for intimidation, not for hunting down small groups of fighters. Their soldiers are large, heavily armed, and used to facing opponents who fight in the open. They're having trouble adapting to our hit-and-run tactics. Sergeant Yura looked up from her equipment. Admiral, this is Resistance Cell 4 on New Shanghai. We've noticed that Vorthan patrols follow predictable routes and timing. They seem to expect us to attack their strongest positions and ignore their supply lines. Confirmed, Hanna replied. Intelligence suggests that most species, the Vorthans, have conquered focused on trying to destroy their biggest weapons and ships. No one has ever systematically targeted their logistics and support systems. Kangman smiled for the first time in days. Because most species fight like the Vorthans expect them to fight. We're not going to do that. Over the following weeks, the human resistance network grew like a living thing. Every occupied world spawned dozens of small cells, each one operating independently but coordinating through Yura's communication network. They learned to move through sewers, abandoned buildings, and underground tunnels. They studied Vorthan patrol patterns and supply schedules. Most importantly, they learned that their enemies were not invincible. The aliens are getting frustrated, reported Dr. Jung-houn from her hidden laboratory on Europa. The biochemist had been analyzing captured Vorthan equipment and biological samples. Their soldiers are trained for quick, decisive battles. This kind of prolonged resistance is wearing them down mentally. Kangman was leading his team through the ruins of what had once been New Shanghai's commercial district when Jung's report came through. Around him, the evidence of Vorthan power was everywhere. Melted buildings, twisted metal, and glass turned to slag by their orbital bombardment. But in the shadows between the ruins, humans moved like ghosts. Contact ahead, whispered Private Kim Dong-yoon from his position as scout. 4 Vorthan soldiers conducting a routine patrol. Kangman examined the aliens through his binoculars. They were massive beings, each one nearly 3 meters tall and covered in powered armor that made them look even more imposing. Their weapons could punch through concrete walls, and their shields could deflect most human firearms. In a direct confrontation, 4 Vorthan soldiers could easily defeat 20 humans, but Kangman was not planning a direct confrontation. Hyunwoo, can you place charges on that collapsed overpass? He asked quietly. The demolition specialist studied the rubble above the Vorthan patrol route. Give me 5 minutes, Colonel. When they pass underneath, we can bring the whole thing down on top of them. Do it, everyone else. Take positions. We hit them with everything we have the moment Hyunwoo's charges go off. The ambush was over in 30 seconds. The overpass collapsed, crushing 2 Vorthan soldiers instantly. The other 2 survived but were trapped under debris and unable to use their heavy weapons effectively. Kangman's team finished them with concentrated small arms fire before disappearing back into the ruins. 4 down, Yura reported over the communication network. That makes 47 Vorthan soldiers eliminated this week across all resistance cells. It was not a large number compared to the size of the occupation force, but Kangman knew that was not the point. Every successful ambush proved that the Vorthans could be killed. Every destroyed supply convoy showed that their logistics could be disrupted. Every communication relay they sabotaged demonstrated that their control was not absolute. Colonel, called Corporal Shin Jae-won from his position near the entrance to their current hideout. We've got company coming. Looks like a full Vorthan search and destroy team, about 20 soldiers with heavy equipment. Kangman cursed under his breath. The aliens were learning too, adapting their tactics to deal with human resistance. Instead of small patrols that could be ambushed, they were now sending large forces equipped with sensors and heavy weapons to root out resistance cells. "Time to move," he ordered. "Youngwoo, give us a distraction." "Everyone else, evacuation route." 3. The team scattered through pre-planned escape routes as explosions echoed through the ruins behind them. Kangman's last sight of their hideout was a pillar of smoke rising from the carefully hidden entrance as Hyenwoo's demolition charges destroyed everything they could not carry. 3 hours later, they regrouped in an abandoned subway station 15 kilometers away. Half their equipment was gone, and 2 team members had been wounded during the escape. But they were alive, and they would fight again tomorrow. "This is Ambassador Park Seo-jin broadcasting on all frequencies," came a new voice. "Over Yura's communication equipment? I bring greetings from the Rebellion Alliance." Kangman looked up sharply. "Alliance? What alliance?" Park's voice continued through the static. "Fellow humans, you are no longer alone in your fight against the Vorthan Empire. Your resistance efforts have inspired other species to join the cause. The Kaleri, the Thunish, and the Valdris have all agreed to coordinate their rebellion efforts with our own." The news hit the resistance cell like a physical blow. They had been so focused on their own fight for survival that they had not considered that other species might be fighting similar battles across the galaxy. "The Kaleri have provided us with detailed intelligence about Vorthan command structures," Park continued. "The Thunish have shared advanced stealth technology that will help our ships avoid detection. The Valdris have given us access to weapons that can penetrate Vorthan armor more effectively." Sergeant Yura was frantically taking notes as the transmission continued. "Colonel, this changes everything. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore, we're part of something bigger." "How much bigger?" Kangman asked. "According to this intelligence, there are active resistance movements on over 30 worlds," Yura replied, excitement growing in her voice. "The Vorthans are fighting wars on dozens of fronts simultaneously." Major N. Taeyong's voice came through the communication network from his position on Mars. "All resistance cells, this is Major Im. I've just received confirmation that Admiral Hannah has made contact with the Alliance leadership. They're planning something big." "What kind of big?" Kangman wanted to know. "The kind that might actually give us a chance to win this war," Im replied. "But it's going to require every resistance cell to coordinate their efforts simultaneously. We're going to hit every Vorthan installation in human space at the same time." Kangman looked around at his tired, wounded team. They had been fighting for weeks with improvised weapons and stolen supplies, hiding in ruins and conducting desperate ambushes against vastly superior forces. The idea that their small acts of defiance might be part of a galaxy-wide rebellion seemed impossible, but then he remembered something his grandfather had told him about the old wars on Earth. "Sometimes the impossible happens when ordinary people refuse to give up." "When do we start?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Im replied. "At exactly 1400 hours, every resistance cell hits their primary target simultaneously. We're going to show the Vorthans what happens when they try to rule people who refuse to be ruled." Kangman smiled as he began planning the attack. The aliens had expected humanity to kneel or die. They had never considered that humans might choose a third option: to fight from the shadows until their enemies learned to fear the dark. The meeting place was a dead asteroid floating in the empty space between star systems. No one would think to look for a secret gathering in such a lifeless place. Captain Kangmin-soo guided his stealth ship toward the hidden docking bay, his hands steady on the controls despite the importance of his mission. Admiral Hannah had chosen him personally for this diplomatic mission. "We need someone who can think fast and adapt quickly," she had said. "The species we're meeting have been fighting the Vorthans longer than we have. They know things we need to learn." The asteroid's interior had been hollowed out decades ago by miners, then abandoned when the ore ran out. Now it served as a neutral meeting ground for rebels and refugees from across the galaxy. As Min-soo walked through the converted corridors, he saw species he had never imagined existed. The Kaleri were tall and graceful, with blue-green skin and 4 arms that moved like flowing water. They had been fighting the Vorthons for 50 years, ever since their homeworld had been conquered and their people enslaved. Their leader, Ambassador Vexhai, greeted Minsu with what he hoped was a friendly gesture. "So you are the humans who—" "Bloodied General Thakmer's nose," Vexhai said, her voice carrying a musical quality that the translation device rendered into understandable words. "We have heard of your creative tactics. Using kinetic weapons against energy shields was inspired." "We got lucky," Minsu replied honestly. "The Vorthons weren't expecting us to think like pirates instead of soldiers." The Thunish representative was harder to understand, both literally and figuratively. The crystal-like being communicated through light patterns that the translation device struggled to interpret. But their message was clear. They had technology that could help human ships avoid Vorthon sensors, and they were willing to share it. "Why help us?" Minsu asked. "You barely know us." The answer came in flashing colors across the Thunish being's crystalline surface. "Because you fight when fighting seems impossible. That is something we respect." Dr. Yung Sua had accompanied Minsu on the mission, her scientific expertise essential for understanding alien technologies. She spent hours with Thunish engineers, learning about stealth systems that bent light and energy in ways human science had never considered. "It's incredible," she reported to Minsu during a brief break in the technical discussions. "Their stealth technology doesn't just hide our ships from sensors. It makes them invisible to the naked eye as well. We could fly right past a Vorthon patrol and they wouldn't see us." The third species at the meeting was perhaps the most surprising. The Valdris looked almost human, but their pale skin had a metallic sheen and their eyes were solid silver. They had been the Vorthon Empire's most recent conquest before humanity, and their hatred for their former captors burned like cold fire. "We lost our homeworld 3 years ago," explained Captain Zethara, the Valdris military representative. "But we saved our fleet and our people. We have been hit-and-run attacks against Vorthon supply lines ever since." "What kind of weapons do you use?" Minsu asked. Zethara smiled, an expression that looked predatory on her metallic features. "Weapons that turn Vorthon strength against them. Their armor is designed to distribute energy from beam weapons, but it becomes brittle when exposed to certain frequencies of sound. Our sonic weapons can crack their hulls like eggs." The 3-day conference was a revelation for the human delegation. Each species had developed different ways to fight the Vorthons, exploiting weaknesses that the Empire had never bothered to address. The Kaleri used swarm tactics with small, fast ships. The Thunish employed stealth and sabotage. The Valdris had perfected weapons specifically designed to counter Vorthon technology. "Alone, we are all losing this war slowly," Ambassador Vexhai observed during the final session. "Together we might actually win it." But cooperation between species that had never met before was not simple. Each race had different customs, different ways of thinking, and different priorities. The Kaleri wanted to focus on rescue operations to free enslaved populations. The Thunish preferred to target Vorthon industrial facilities. The Valdris wanted direct military confrontation. "We need a unified command structure," argued Major Im Taeyong, who was participating in the conference through long-range communication from his position in the Sol system. "If we're all fighting separate wars, the Vorthons can defeat us one by one." "But who leads this unified command?" asked Zethara. "Why should the Valdris take orders from humans who have been fighting for only a few weeks?" The question created tension in the room. Each species had valid reasons for wanting control of the alliance. The Kaleri had the most experience. The Thunish had the best technology. The Valdris had the most complete understanding of Vorthon military doctrine. The humans had the most recent success against Vorthon forces. Minsu found himself speaking before he had fully formed the thought. Maybe that's the wrong question. Instead of asking who should lead, maybe we should ask how we can all contribute our strengths to a common plan. The room fell silent as the alien representatives considered his words. Finally, Ambassador Vexhai spoke. "What do you propose, human?" "Compartmentalized operations," Minsu replied, the plan forming in his mind as he spoke. "Each species does what they do best, but we coordinate timing and targets to support each other." The Kaleri handle rescue operations during our attacks. The Thunish provide stealth support and sabotage key installations. The Valdris engage Vorthan military forces directly while humans conduct diversionary attacks. Dr. Jung looked at him with surprise. That could actually work. Each species maintains operational independence while contributing to a larger strategy. The negotiations took another full day, but eventually the Alliance agreed on a framework for cooperation. They would share intelligence, coordinate major operations, and provide mutual support when possible. Most importantly, they would synchronize their attacks to prevent the Vorthans from concentrating their forces against any single species. On the flight back to human space, Minsu reflected on what they had accomplished. "Do you think it will work?" he asked Dr. Jung. "It has to work," she replied, "because the alternative is extinction for all of us." The first joint operation was planned for 2 weeks later. While human resistance cells prepared for coordinated strikes across occupied territories, Captain Minsu led a mixed fleet of human and alien ships toward a major Vorthan supply depot in the Rigel system. The depot was heavily defended, with orbital weapons platforms and a patrol fleet of 15 Vorthan warships. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a target would be suicide. But these were not normal circumstances. The attack began when Thunish stealth ships disabled the depot sensor array, leaving the defenders blind to incoming threats. Valdris warships engaged the patrol fleet directly, their sonic weapons crackling through Vorthan armor like it was made of glass. Human ships, equipped with new kinetic weapons designed by Dr. Jung, targeted the orbital platforms. Meanwhile, Kaleri rescue vessels used the chaos of battle to approach the depot's detention facilities. Hundreds of enslaved beings from dozens of species were freed and evacuated before the Vorthans knew what was happening. "All targets destroyed," reported the Joint Fleet Commander as the last Vorthan ship exploded in a ball of fire. "Operation successful with minimal casualties." But the real success was not the destroyed depot or the freed prisoners. It was the proof that the Alliance could work. Species that had never fought together before had coordinated a complex military operation against a superior enemy and won. The news of the victory spread quickly through the rebel networks. On occupied worlds, resistance fighters took heart knowing they were not alone. In hidden bases, military planners began developing more ambitious operations. Most importantly, other species that had been too afraid to resist began reaching out. To the Alliance, Admiral Hanna's voice came through the communication channels as the joint fleet prepared to return to their respective territories. "This is just the beginning. The Vorthans have ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries. Today, we showed them that fear works both ways." Professor Bei Jiyong, the scientist rescued from Vorthan captivity, had been studying captured alien technology with Dr. Jung. Her voice carried excitement as she made her report. "Admiral, I think we found something that could change everything. The Vorthans have a central command facility that coordinates all their military operations across the galaxy. If we could capture or destroy it, we could cripple their entire war machine," Hanna finished. "How heavily defended is this facility?" "Heavily enough that it would require everything we have and everything our allies have to even attempt an assault," Bei replied. "But Admiral, if we succeed, we could end this war." Minsu looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them was a facility that represented the heart of Vorthan power. The Alliance had won its first victory, but the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The question was no longer whether different species could work together. The question was whether they could work together well enough to attempt the impossible. The Vorthan Central Command Facility hung in space like a metallic moon, bristling with weapons and surrounded by the largest fleet Admiral Li Hanna had ever seen. 300 warships formed defensive rings around the massive station, while patrol squadrons moved in constant patterns through the surrounding space. "Final count confirms it," reported Commander Park Ji-won from his position at the tactical station aboard the UES Defiance. "We're looking at the entire Vorthan home fleet, plus reinforcements from every sector they control." Hannah stood at the center of the Alliance command bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of human, Kaleri, Thunish, and Valdris forces. 2 months of planning had led to this moment, and she knew that everything depended on the next few hours. Status of all Alliance fleets? She asked. Captain Kang Min-su reported from his position coordinating the Kaleri forces. Kaleri rescue ships are in position and ready to extract prisoners from the station. Their swarm fighters are prepared to engage enemy patrol squadrons. Dr. Jung Sua spoke from the science station, where she was monitoring the integrated alien technologies. Thunish stealth ships have successfully penetrated the outer defensive perimeter. They're ready to disable the station's shield generators on your command? The Valdris fleet commander, Captain Zethara, appeared on the main view screen from her flagship. Valdris assault vessels are prepared for direct engagement with the Vorthan heavy cruisers. Our sonic weapons have been calibrated specifically for their armor frequencies. But Hana knew that even with all their allied forces, they were still outnumbered 3-1. The plan they had developed was desperate and complex, requiring perfect timing and more than a little luck. One mistake would doom them all. Remember, she addressed the combined fleet, our primary objective is not to destroy the command station. It's to capture General Thakmur and force a surrender. If we can take their supreme commander alive, we might be able to end this war without destroying both fleets. The battle began when Thunish stealth ships struck the station's shield generators simultaneously. Invisible to Vorthan sensors, they had positioned themselves at key points around the massive facility and attacked without warning. The station's protective barriers flickered and failed, leaving it vulnerable for the first time in decades. Commander Ru Jinsu led the first wave of human ships toward the command station, his modified cruiser loaded with boarding parties and kinetic weapons. This is Ru to all ships. We're going in fast and hard. Remember, we only get one chance at this. The Vorthan response was immediate and overwhelming. Energy beams lanced out from defending ships, lighting up space like deadly fireworks. 3 human vessels were destroyed in the first minute of fighting. Their crews vaporized before they could even return fire, but the Alliance plan was working. While human ships drew the attention of the main Vorthan fleet, Kaleri swarm fighters attacked from multiple directions, their small size and incredible speed making them difficult targets. Valdris warships engaged the enemy heavy cruisers directly, their sonic weapons cracking Vorthan hulls with each hit. Major Im Taeyong commanded the boarding operation from his assault transport. All teams, prepare for hostile insertion. Intelligence suggests the command center is located in the station's core, approximately 15 levels down from the main docking bay. The transport shook violently as Vorthan defensive fire hammered against its shields. Through the viewports, Im could see the massive bulk of the command station growing larger as they approached. The structure was so huge that it had its own gravity field, and docking with it would be like landing on a small planet. Incoming transmission from General Thakmur, reported Communications Officer Lee Damin. He wants to speak with Admiral Hannah directly. Put him through, Hannah ordered. The Vorthan general's image appeared on the main screen. His forearms spread wide in what might have been a gesture of contempt. His burning eyes showed no fear, only cold rage. Admiral Hannah, you have brought impressive forces to your own destruction. I admit I did not expect primitives to coordinate such a complex attack. It's not too late to surrender, Hannah replied calmly. Order your fleet to stand down, and we can discuss terms for ending this war. Thakmur's laugh was like grinding metal. Surrender? I think not. Even if you somehow manage to damage this station, I have prepared a final gift for your rebellious alliance. The general gestured to something off-screen, and the view screen shifted to show a massive weapon being moved into position at the station's core. The device was spherical and covered in the same glowing symbols that marked all Vorthan technology, but this one pulsed with energy that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Behold the World Killer, Thakmur announced. One shot from this weapon will destroy any planet in this system. Choose quickly, Admiral. Order your fleet to withdraw, or watch as I erase your homeworld from existence. The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what they were facing. The weapon was pointed toward Earth, 13 light minutes away. Even at the speed of light, they would have no way to warn anyone or evacuate the planet in time. You're bluffing, Hannah said, but her voice carried less certainty than she intended. Am I? Thakmor replied. I have already given the firing sequence. In exactly 10 minutes, Earth will cease to exist. Unless, of course, you surrender immediately and order all Alliance forces to stand down. Engineer Chief Nam Hyojin looked up from her analysis of the alien weapon. Admiral, the energy readings are off the charts. If that thing fires, it could crack a planet's core like an egg. Hannah felt the weight of impossible choices crushing down on her. If she surrendered, the Alliance would be destroyed and billions would be enslaved. If she continued the attack, Earth and everyone on it would die. Either choice meant the end of everything she had fought to protect. But then Commander Rue's voice crackled through the communication system from his position near the command station. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildup in the stations. Core, if I can get my ship close enough to the weapon, I might be able to disrupt its firing sequence. That's suicide, Hannah replied immediately. The energy discharge would destroy your ship. Better my ship than Earth, Rue said calmly. Besides, I've got an idea that might work. If I can overload the weapon's power systems at the exact moment it fires, the energy might feed back into the station itself. Dr. Jung had been analyzing the weapon's energy patterns. It could work, but the timing would have to be perfect. And Admiral, there's something else. If Commander Rue succeeds in turning that weapon against the station, it will destroy the entire command facility and everyone on it, including General Thakmor and any hope of a negotiated surrender, but also including the thousands of prisoners being held in the station's detention levels and the Alliance boarding parties that were already inside the structure. All boarding teams, immediate evacuation, Hannah ordered. Get to your transports and get clear of the station. Major Im's voice came through the speakers, distorted by interference from the station's interior. Admiral, we've located the detention levels. There are over 10,000 prisoners down here, including humans from the colonies the Vorthans destroyed. We can't evacuate them all in time. Engineer Quanarium was working frantically at her station, trying to find another solution. Admiral, if I can reroute power from our engines to the main deflector array, I might be able to create a containment field around the weapon. It won't stop it from firing, but it might redirect the energy beam away from Earth. How much time do you need? Hannah asked. 3 minutes, assuming everything works perfectly. Quan replied. General Thakmor's countdown continued relentlessly. 5 minutes until Earth's destruction, Admiral. Your choice. The battle raged around them as Alliance ships continued their desperate assault on the Vorthan fleet. But Hannah knew that all their fighting would be meaningless if the World Killer fired successfully. Do it, she ordered. Rue, prepare for your run. Quan, get that deflector array ready. All other ships, cover them. What followed were the longest 3 minutes in human history. Commander Rue's ship raced toward the command station, weaving through defensive fire while Quan worked to complete her modifications. The Vorthan weapon continued charging, its energy building toward the critical point at exactly 2 minutes before the weapon was scheduled to fire. Everything came together. Quan's deflector array activated just as Rue's ship reached the stations. Core. The collision between his vessel and the World Killer created a chain reaction that turned the weapon's energy back on itself. The command station died in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. General Thakmor, the World Killer, and the heart of Vorthan military power all ceased to exist in the same brilliant moment, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Commander Rue and his crew were gone. Major Im and half the boarding parties had been caught inside the station when it exploded. 10,000 prisoners had been freed from slavery. By being freed from life itself, as the surviving Alliance ships regrouped and counted their losses, Admiral Hannah stood on her bridge and watched the debris field that had once been the enemy's greatest stronghold. They had won, but the price of victory felt almost too high to bear. Admiral, reported Captain Kang Min-soo, the remaining Vorthan ships. 5 years had passed since the battle at the Vorthan command station, and the galaxy looked very different now. Admiral Lee Hanna stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the massive structure that had been built where the command station once existed. The irony was not lost on her. The place where the Vorthans had planned to rule the galaxy forever had become the seat of the Galactic Council, where no single species held power over the others. The morning session went well, said Ambassador Kim Woo-sung as he joined Hannah at the observation window. The former military officer had traded his uniform for diplomatic robes, but his bearing still carried the confidence of someone who had survived impossible battles. "Defined well," Hannah replied with a slight smile. "From what I heard, the Kaleri and Valdris representatives nearly came to blows over mining rights in the former Vorthan territories." "Nearly," Kim emphasized, "but they didn't. That's progress. 5 years ago, we were all fighting separate wars. Now we're arguing about trade agreements and resource allocation. It's almost boring." Hannah laughed, remembering when boring would have seemed like paradise. The transition from war to peace had not been easy. The Vorthan Empire had controlled hundreds of worlds and dozens of species for centuries. When it collapsed, the resulting chaos had threatened to tear the galaxy apart. "Status report on the integration programs?" Hannah asked. "Better than expected," Kim replied, pulling up a holographic display with statistics and charts. 70% of former Vorthan worlds have successfully transitioned to self-governance. The remaining 30% are still dealing with infrastructure damage or political instability, but they're making progress. The most difficult challenge had been dealing with the Vorthans themselves. After the destruction of their command station and the death of General Thakmer, the surviving members of their species had been scattered across their former empire, many of them as confused and lost as the people they had once enslaved. "What about Sub-Commander Veltek's report?" Hannah asked. "He's making remarkable progress on Vorthan Prime," Kim said. "The reconstruction efforts are ahead of schedule, and his new government has agreed to pay reparations to the species they conquered. It's not enough to undo centuries of damage, but it's a start." Veltek had been one of the few Vorthan officers to survive the final battle, and he had surprised everyone by genuinely embracing the Alliance's principles of cooperation and mutual respect. His efforts to rebuild Vorthan society along more peaceful lines had been crucial to preventing a cycle of revenge and violence. The communication panel near the observation window chimed, and Dr. Young-sua's voice came through clearly. "Admiral, the morning briefing is ready. We have some interesting developments to discuss." Hannah and Kim made their way to the council chambers, passing through corridors that bustled with activity. Humans worked alongside Kaleri, Thunish, and Valdris, as well as dozens of other species that had joined the Alliance over the past 5 years. The sight still amazed Hannah sometimes. "The primary topic today is the request from the Zorifi Federation to join the Galactic Council," Dr. Jung reported as they entered the briefing room. "They've agreed to all our requirements for membership, including the abolition of slavery and the establishment of democratic representation. That makes them the 47th species to join," observed Captain Kang Min-soo, who now served as the Council's military advisor. "The Alliance has grown far beyond what any of us imagined during the war, but growth brought its own challenges. Each new member species brought different cultures, different needs, and different perspectives on how the galaxy should be governed. Finding common ground among 47 different civilizations was often more difficult than fighting the Vorthans had been. There's also the matter of the memorial dedication," added Professor Bei Ji-yong, the former prisoner who had become one of the Council's chief historians. "The families of Commander Ru Jin-soo and Major Taeyang have requested that the ceremony be kept simple," Hannah nodded. The memorial to those who had died in the final battle was nearly complete, a graceful structure that honored the sacrifices made by all species in the fight for freedom. But she knew that no monument could truly capture what had been lost. The afternoon session of the Council was devoted to education policy. One of the Alliance's most important goals was ensuring that future generations would understand the lessons of the war and the importance of cooperation between species. The exchange student program has exceeded all expectations, reported Director Lee Min-jae from the Alliance Education Authority. We now have young people from 30 different species studying together on integrated campuses. They're learning not just about science and technology, but about each other's cultures and histories. Hannah thought about her own education growing up on Earth when humanity believed they were alone in the universe. How different things might have been if they had known about the richness and diversity of galactic civilization from the beginning. What about the military academies? Asked Colonel Choi Kang-min, who had transitioned from resistance leader to training instructor. Are we prepared to defend what we've built? The integrated defense forces are performing well, Min-jae replied. Cadets from different species are learning to work together as naturally as breathing. They don't see Kaleri or Valdris or humans, they just see fellow officers. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the outer system. Sensors. Captain Oh Jae-hwan, who had survived the war to become head of system security, appeared on the main view screen with a concerned expression. Admiral, we're detecting an unknown fleet approaching the system. 25 ships of unfamiliar design requesting permission to dock. The council chamber fell silent. Unknown fleets had meant invasion and conquest for too long. Even 5 years after the war's end, the sight of unidentified ships still triggered old fears. Do they respond to communication attempts? Hannah asked. Yes, Admiral. They claim to be refugees from the far spiral arm. They say they've heard about the Alliance and want to request sanctuary. It was a familiar story. News of the Alliance's victory over the Vorthans had spread across the galaxy, inspiring hope in species that had never dared to resist oppression before. But it had also attracted the attention of other tyrants and conquerors who saw the Alliance as a threat to their own power. Standard protocol, Hannah ordered. Escort them to the quarantine station for processing. Full diplomatic reception, but maintain security precautions. 2 days later, the mystery was solved. The refugees were indeed genuine, survivors of a species whose homeworld had been destroyed by a different empire in a distant part of the galaxy. They had traveled for months to reach Alliance space, following rumors and legends about a place where different species lived together in peace. We had given up hope, explained their leader, a being whose crystalline appearance reminded Hannah of the Thunish, but whose inner light pulsed with different colors. Our world is gone, our fleet is scattered, and we have nowhere else to go. The Council's response was unanimous. The refugees were welcomed into Alliance space and offered assistance in finding new homes among the member worlds. It was not the first time such a situation had arisen, and it would not be the last. Years passed, and Hannah eventually retired from active duty, though she remained as an advisor to the Council. She established a training academy on a peaceful world in the outer territories, where she taught young officers from across the galaxy about leadership, strategy, and the importance of standing up for what was right. One day, as she was reviewing applications from potential cadets, a young human woman knocked on her office door. Cadet Lim Chae-young was fresh from basic training, eager and bright-eyed in the way that reminded Hannah of herself decades earlier. Admiral, Chae-young said respectfully, I've been studying the historical records of the Vorthan War. There's something I don't understand. What's that, Cadet? When General Fakemur demanded that humanity kneel, you told him to bow first. But you never explained what you meant by that. What did you want him to bow to? Hannah smiled, remembering that moment on the bridge of the Defiance, when she had spoken words that would echo across the galaxy. I wanted him to bow to the idea that respect is earned, not demanded, that strength comes from cooperation, not domination, that the universe is big enough for all of us to share. Chae-young nodded thoughtfully. Did he ever understand that? Some of his people did, Hannah replied. Sub-Commander Veltak and others like him learned that there's more honor in building something together than in tearing it down alone. That's why the Alliance has lasted. Through the window of her office, Hannah could see ships from dozens of different species landing and taking off from the Academy spaceport. Students and instructors moved between buildings, their conversations a mixture of languages and ideas that would have been impossible just a generation earlier. The war taught us that we're stronger together than apart, she continued. But peace has taught us something even more important. We're better together than apart. Cadet Teo salted and prepared to leave, but Hannah called her back. One more thing, Cadet. The next time someone demands that you kneel, remember that you always have a choice. You can submit, you can fight,